and not really focusing on the marketing point of, the real problem is, finding a genuine quality lead where I'm not competing with everybody over that lead.
Well, exactly. So, we know that, people who are doing expireds, and those are going to convert 1%, 2% of the time. But when I'm working with, or FSBOs, FSBOs have a little higher probability that there's a high both FSBOs and expires have a high probability of listing with an agent or relisting if it's an expired. But the conversion rate is near 1% because of the competition. Now, if I go to a distressed property, I'm looking at, 70, 80% of those people are going to list their house within, the next few months. And I have almost no competition. And so Rebo Gateway put out a statistic not that long ago saying that 56% of homeowners in foreclosure were going to list with an agent. I got a very high conversion rate when working with stressed properties. I run a FSBO campaign and I run an expired campaign, and my results are 1-2% of all the people that we're running an aggressive campaign on them. So, but when I get in front of a distressed property, even though it's not as many, it costs less money and I get better results and I make more money because those are always 6%.
Right. And that's the market today. Who's going to undercut who? I've been investigating additional marketing ways of trying to get sellers, right? And looking at all the different Facebook strategies. And even those, when I'm fishing around in buy-sell groups, and we've talked about it, and it's certainly in the archives for the coaching students, even those leads, and this is a drip line, when you start to engage somebody on social media, you have multiple real estate agents that are going to jump on that line as well and start undercutting and overpromising whatever you're offering. It doesn't even matter what you're offering.
Or it doesn't what you're offering. Listen, we've talked about this. I think the numbers in California, and it may be better or worse in other places, but in California, 1 in 94 adults, 1 in 95 adults have a real estate license.
Yeah.
What that means is everybody knows somebody, or is one generation removed from somebody who has a real estate license. And number one, I lose listings for 2 reasons, and I'm very effective at conveying on a listing presentation. If I go to a listing presentation, I get 90+% of them. There are 2 primary reasons why I do not get a listing. Number one is that I won't buy into the price. Our agents will go in there and tell them whatever price they want to see, even if it's not supported by comps, and sell them the dream or buy the dream, only to have to grind them to discount the price so they get control of the listing. I'm not willing to do that. I tell them the truth up front about valuation. And number 2 is everything about what we're doing. They love the way we do it, but they just can't say no to their friend who's a real estate agent. They can't say no to their family member who is a real estate agent. Those are the 2 reasons I miss listings. Yeah. All things being equal, we always, if they're down and tell us, we get the listing almost every other time. So I think that's really true. And when you're dealing with a distressed property, it makes a huge difference. Just because you have a real estate license doesn't mean you know what the heck you're doing. And I mean, any more than this, because you have a degree in literature means you can write a book, or you pass the bar doesn't make you a good lawyer. All these things are factors. So we sit down and talk to them, and we provide data and expertise. And oftentimes, not that it doesn't happen anymore, is that they invite their friends, the realtor, over to the meeting with us. We talk about those property opportunities. The realtor comes off with doing business because they're blown away by the level of knowledge we have to the level of knowledge that they have. And this is going to happen more and more because, the number of realtors grew. I think that NAR said 6% last year. you've got a whole generation of people that have been coming into the market since 2014 and 15 who still don't even know what a short sale is. I mean, more and more, I'm having to explain what a short sale is to real estate agents. And that kind of blows my mind, because I just take for granted that everybody knows what a short sale is. But if you've come to the market in the last 4 or 5 years, there's a good chance you've never done one, and you've had very few conversations about a short sale, if any. That gives me a huge advantage.
There you go. And that's the advantage for all of you coaching students that are on the call. Let's start knocking down some questions. And I'll take them in order. And to Mark's question, I'm going to save yours because it's good monster questions. Let's start with Doug in the Bay Area. David, what is your best source for source of data to track foreclosure starts?
I read the news, baby. Adam, Darren Blomquist is a really good source, because they have a particular interest in this properties. You know, they earned their reputation and built a whole business around Dutch property, and now they've kind of went mainstream. For the stress is just segment of what they do, so that's a good source. And then you can we use Foreclosure Radar, Property Radar now they call it. Use Property Radar, another program that built a business around foreclosure data and then segued into general data. So I use Property Radar for that. And if you're in that every week, you can get a general sense of what's going on in your market. You can see if there's more or less in by area, county, or even state. Right there, foreclosure and Property Radar. So there are plenty of data to do, but I'm like the rest of you. Don't really go look for it. I just kind of do it by feel, and I hear the national headlines just like everybody else. Sometimes I'll get an email or an alert or somebody, and then I'll go look for some information and see if I can corroborate it. But for the most part, I'm getting it the same way you get it. But Adam's probably the best source for the stress stuff.
You can also sign up. I'll give a plug to the CoreLogic report. It's a free report. They want your email. You get on the email list, but they give quarterly reports as well. They also recently started doing fraud reports. They have multiple reports. Good system. Pete Sanchez. I pulled a new tag list yesterday for those of you who don't know, who aren't coaching students listening to this broadcast. Tagging is in reference to the marketing piece you place on the property. We call it tagging because they look like tags. I don't know where that terminology started or why we started using that terminology, but over the last 5 years, that's the terminology we use.
I'm sure that started with you.
Probably. I probably, much like the word mitigator that now seems to be an industry standard word, I take full credit for coming up with that fictitious word. For anybody who's wondering, because you've heard the word, it's a fake word I created when I was out teaching short sales, because I kept explaining that I was an asset manager class 3, and everybody said, well, what the hell is that? I said, I'm a guy who mitigates short sales. And so the word mitigator kind of stuck somewhere out on the road in those first years back in 2007. Stupid.
Makes sense. Well, the department's loss mitigation. So
right. Pete Sanchez. I pulled a new tag list yesterday for a county I'm targeting. I saw 40 new NODs added within the last 45 days. NODs are definitely increasing, which goes back to sort of how we started this call, David, which is, all right, it's the new year, and we see this year after year, even in the corrected markets that they claimed. Banks blowing out NODs and really kind of hunkering down in the first quarter.
Okay.
I'm just asking your feedback. If you've seen an uptick out in the valley for you.
We saw a real decline in December, so it's hard to ask me right now, as we know that generally go down in December and then they go up. So what we're now seeing is we're seeing a spike. We saw it spike. We were in upward trends August or October, November. We saw it in December, and I don't think that we have a feel really for January, but my expectation is it's going to increase. Now, it always is going into the end of the year as banks really try to figure out whether or not they're going to sell the asset or write it off, or push into next year. They're making big balance sheet decisions on the distressed assets, and then they kind of take a deep breath. So that happens by the end of November, and then January they regroup and re-engage. So it's kind of built into a crescendo. Banks are also aware of seasonal cycles. That's why you'll see run up, and you guys are asset managers, right? So, and it's mitigated, which based in the litigation part really means how to lose the least amount of money. So running into the spring and selling season, you'll see a prelude that you'll see an increase in foreclosure notifications as banks try to sell into more of the seasons. So that's the two periods of the year that you'll see an uptick, and whether or not higher than previous year or not, activity is going to be growing as they try to sell into the higher price seasons, and they sell into the end of the year where they're trying to clear up their balance sheet.
From Donald.
But yes, I'm gonna with uptick.
Okay. From Donald Ross out in the South Orange County area. David, can you give an idea of the timeframes required by lenders to start a short sale, i.e. some of the lenders will not accept documents in 15 to 17 days. Can you clarify for everyone sort of the short sale timelines that are going on currently?
Okay, so we don't subscribe to all those timelines. I mean, we're aware of them, like Donald is. The bottom line is that we don't choose to work a client because they have a bank that doesn't accept short sale or won't consider package within a certain period of time. We work with everybody. Our job is to figure out to get it done. We have examples when a bank that they wouldn't and they do, or we find another way to get postponed. More and more, though, you're seeing these times expand. There are some lenders, and I name them for you. I don't care. You're in some banks are 15 days, some are 16 days, some are 20 days, some are 30, some are 35 days. Now, I think one that was 40 or 45 days not long ago. And when you're faced with that kind of thing, that's kind of how you want to get to us right away. Because we've got expertise. Sometimes we have relationships. We have escalated relationships in a lot of these places based on the bulk transactions we do, and it's not that unusual to be able to grab it out of the. The truth is, if the seller will do what we say to do, we can almost always get it stopped. They may not like doing what we ask them to do, and as a result may refuse to. But if they will follow our directions, we can get it stopped. Okay, so just depends on the level of fear and motivation and anxiety that the seller. So if we have the seller cooperation, we can get it regardless of the bank guidelines. But as a general, the more time we have, the better the rules.
There you go. From Margaret up in the Sacramento area. New member, I might add. In the Sacramento area, NODs started showing the last 6 months in zip codes that before had none. So that goes back to the point of kind of refreshing the books, David, in your mind?
So ask me that question again. I didn't really understand it.
She previously, for the last 6 months, they didn't have any NODs posted, and now suddenly there are NODs.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's a new activity or not. Maybe she just wasn't paying that close of attention to it, and she has a renewed focus because she's joining us. But yeah, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised at big December to January. Watch what I say. You're going to start seeing the headlines come out in the next few weeks where they're reporting that there was a big jump in foreclosure starts this January over December. But then they're going to say it's the same or less than January over January, and that's just normal seasonal, kind of stuff.
You're going to like this next one, David. This is going to lead into a shameless plug for you. From Byron Bliss, a homeowner has a hard money loan, business loan now in the rears, When they fell behind, they